Hi everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So there's another city that's got pretty good broadband that's looking at building their own broadband network. This time it's Duluth, Minnesota. I'll be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So Friday, I talked about Jamestown, New York. That's a city in New York that is possibly going to be the first city in New York State to have its own municipal broadband network, because New York's been kind of not real friendly for muni broadband networks. But I was talking about that on Friday. I thought it was very interesting because Jamestown, New York actually has really good broadband service. In fact, they were saying it's better than Buffalo, New York. If you looked at it, there's two providers, both of which are providing fairly fast internet. In fact, both have got fiber, and both of them have deployed 1 gig service in parts of the city. I don't know if they're completely covered at this point, but you had, I'm trying to remember who was there. But you have Windstream for sure, and then the other one I think was Charter, I believe. So you have Jamestown, New York, and but still looking at building their own broadband network for the city of Jamestown and doing that as an open access model. And now today, I'm seeing that we've got the story here from Duluth, Minnesota, and they're looking at doing the same thing. And if you look at Duluth, similar kind of situation that I could see when I was looking at what they have right now, and that they've got pretty good broadband internet. And a lot of times when you think about a municipality that wants to build broadband, it's because they don't have good broadband. Because maybe there's one incumbent provider, maybe it's DSL, and they haven't done anything to bring their system up to where it could be getting higher speeds. They haven't launched fiber everywhere. Basically, they're kind of stuck, and they're not doing anything, maybe because nobody's threatening them. There's no other competitors. So the city comes in and says, hey, we're going to build it ourselves. If you're not going to do it, we're going to do it. And in some cases, the city will go to that provider and say, hey, let's do a public-private partnership. We'll help you guys get the speeds going. We'll help with the infrastructure. You can run it. And you see that sometimes. But in this case, Jamestown, New York, and here with Duluth, Minnesota, the cities are looking at building their own broadband network, and then as an open access network. And what that would mean would be that any other ISP that wants to come in there could then ride their infrastructure and provide retail service to the citizens of Duluth. And that could be the existing providers as well. So they would not lock out the existing providers. So the existing providers could say, okay, well, we'll go ahead and use your infrastructure, and then we don't need to have ours. They could get rid of that. Maybe they could lease some of it back to the city. So I don't know. But all of these are kind of in the stage of, hey, we're thinking about doing this. We've done our feasibility study. In one case in Jamestown, they did the business plan. I think they're planning on doing the business plan here in Duluth as well. So let's look at this story. So Duluth hires broadband firm as it mulls larger investment. Consultants will analyze the feasibility of building out a publicly owned fiber optic system. And Duluth used the same company that Jamestown, New York used, a company called Entry Point Solutions, and they specialize in building open access broadband networks. The Duluth Economic Development Authority voted Wednesday to spend up to $65,000 to have Entry Point, based in Salt Lake City, advise it on prospects for a publicly owned fiber optic system. The city is considering the possibility of building an open access broadband system. Fleege, who is that? That's somebody associated here. I forgot to look at that. City's considering that. Fleege referred to broadband service. Oh, that's the director of Duluth Planning and Economic Development. He referred to broadband service as critical infrastructure, comparing it to other basic utilities such as water, gas, and electric service. And that's kind of the mantra. You know, you can tell that they're hearing this from the consultants that are coming in, whether it's Entry Point or others that come in and say, hey, you guys should be doing broadband because it's just as important as this other critical infrastructure. It really should be utility, just like water, gas, electric. Everybody should have access to it right to their curb. And if they want to get it from you, they can. And obviously everybody wants to get water, everybody wants to get electric, so this would be another service that they could get that the city could provide. The idea is that with municipal ownership and an open access platform, it will encourage competition, is what he said. And we can basically build a network for probably the cheapest and create the infrastructure that then internet service providers, ISPs, can operate on. So the reason he says we can build it cheaper is really what he's saying, and this is the same thing with Jamestown and others, is that they're looking at this as a way to drive prices down. So again, it's not so much that there's not good internet there right now. You can get internet service, but when you've just got maybe one provider, or even if you've got two, sometimes the prices will stay up there. A lot of times it's the third provider that comes in that will drop the prices. And then also, if these are private operating for-profit companies, then they have a profit that they need to make in order to make this make any sense, right? So why would they build out a service, put all of the upfront costs into building their infrastructure, and then only charge something that's going to only cover their costs? They need to make a profit, stay in business, whereas the city does not need to make a profit. They can sell it at their costs, and that's really all they want to try to avoid is having the taxpayers have to pay anything for this. They want to make sure that it's all kind of covered. So that is an advantage that they have, and that is one of the controversies of a city getting in the business, especially if there's already service providers in the area doing that. So if there's not service providers, that's one thing. But again, what they're trying to do is get some competition going, especially from the city that has lower costs, and then drive the costs down from these other operators, or have these other operators join their open access network and just be one of the multiple ISPs that could be operating on there. Let's see, in her State of the City address, Duluth Mayor Emily Larson referred to broadband as a modern-day essential. Again, this is the kind of thing that everybody's saying. Yet many Duluth residents deal with unreasonably high prices, unreliable service, or no viable access altogether, she said. Only 6% of Duluth has access to high-speed fiber optic internet. This is unacceptable and holding us back as a community. So when she says 6% has access to fiber, I think that's because, I think we'll look at it in a minute here on the map, but I think it's Charter is providing service there, and they're going to be on a DOCSIS network, but they're still providing something very close to a gig. So to say that only 6% has access to fiber doesn't mean that only 6% has access to high-speed internet. That's not true. Now, whether the quality of the service is another thing. A lot of people, a lot of times, are not happy with the big cable companies, because they're not local, and maybe they don't care as much on the customer service side, that kind of thing. But so as far as support, I can't say, but she's making a case here that the service is not what it should be. Council President and DEDA Commissioner Eric Forsman said that while the council supports efforts to improve broadband access and affordability, that resolution didn't take a position that there was any one best way of doing that. I think it's obvious that broadband is really necessary, and that's true, it is. But as a city councilor, I have some reservations about a publicly owned network, to be frank, because we also have to figure out how to pay for our streets and our infrastructure that we already don't have enough money for. So I'm open to the results of the study. Superior is further, they're talking about Superior here. So in the beginning of this, they mentioned that their neighbor, Superior, which is actually in Wisconsin, has also used the same company Entry Point, I think, to do the feasibility portion of the study. It says, let's see here, Superior is farther along with its broadband plans. In March, the city entered the first phase of its Connect Superior project, approving a contract with Colorado-based Magellan Advisors to design a system, develop a business plan, and seek grants to support the initiative. Entry Point estimates that it will need about $31 million to build out a system in Superior. The firm also had submitted a proposal to see the project through to completion, but the City of Superior favored Magellan's offer. Superior Mayor Jim Payne said the feasibility of the project remains under evaluation. So they're still looking at it in Superior. Entry Point said that would cost $31 million. And the Jamestown one that Entry Point did was $25 million. That's what that one was going to cost. So, and in Jamestown, I believe, Entry Point did the business plan as well. So it sounds like Entry Point here maybe just did a feasibility study and maybe came up with a cost, but did not do a complete business plan for them. And it sounds like if this does move forward, or at least certainly in these early stages, that they're going to be going with this company Magellan here in Duluth to do that. So like I did with Jamestown, I took a look at the FCC map to see just what the old FCC maps say is available here. These are not that accurate. We need to keep that in mind, but I'll explain some things about that. But this is the best data that we have available today on broadband in these areas, unless the state has put together a map. I didn't look to see that. But so you can see here, you've got Duluth. This is who we're talking about in the story. But then you've got Superior right here. So this is Minnesota. This is Wisconsin. Here's Lake Superior, and the border of the states are right here. So these are kind of almost sister cities here across this bay. I believe that's St. Louis Bay. So Duluth here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'll just click right here in one of these spots. And if you look at this map, you see that you've got the darker areas are showing that you've got multiple providers. The fewer providers you've got would be a lighter color. And you can see there's nothing really light on here. Like right here where I'm looking at, this is kind of when you look up Duluth, Minnesota, this is the little census block that pops up. So you see you've got Charter here again. So this is Charter. 940 megabits per second down, 35 up. So it's not a huge amount up, but certainly 35 megabits up is enough for most everybody, even if you're doing multiple conference calls, that kind of thing. And certainly 940, that's almost a gig down. Then you've got fixed wireless provider here at 50/50, symmetrical. You've always got satellite that's going to show up as a provider, which these are geosynchronous satellites, not very fast, high latency. You've probably got, it's not showing up on here, but I don't see any reason that you would not have Starlink available in this area. But people tend to not get satellite service when they're in an area like this because they've got good internet from somebody like Charter. You've also got Lumen in here, which is this is formerly, they changed their name, they rebranded to CenturyTel, or excuse me, it was CenturyTel, they rebranded to Lumen. You can see here in this particular area, they've only got DSL, and it's got it at 7 meg. So that's pretty bad. And again, you've got VSAT, another satellite offering here. That might be the same thing as Viasat, I believe. But again, as far as satellite goes, I guarantee you that Starlink, SpaceX Starlink is available here. It's not listed as an alternative, but it's here, and it's going to be, I'm sure, much faster than this. With Starlink, you're probably 100 megabits per second or better here. So, you know, they're going to be better than these fixed wireless services you've got here. It's the same thing in Jamestown. When I was looking at that, I forgot to mention that. I'm sure in Jamestown you've got a Starlink as a possibility, but it's expensive. So you've got to pay, I think it's $600 for the terminal. Then I think it's about $100 a month to get their service. So again, that's not going to fly in an area like this. That's only going to be acceptable to people in an area where there's like no broadband. They've got dial-up, or they've got something like this DSL service at 7, or even at, where's their other one here? Oh, I'll look at another county. So there's other counties here where Lumen's looking a little better. I'll just click in here a little bit. So that's looking there. So let me click this big area here, see what this is. So you got the same thing. You got Charter, you got this fixed wireless again at 50/50, but here Lumen's at 40/3, so they're a little bit better here. But again, Starlink's going to be much better than this as far as speed goes, but it's going to be expensive. So you're not going to see that. And the same thing with these other satellite providers. Even though they're listed, nobody's going to get Viasat or Hughes in an area like this. They were specifically in areas where there was no good service, and now Starlink is better able to fill that because you can get higher speeds for about the same price maybe, and you can get much lower latency with low Earth orbit satellites. So again, as I clicked around in different areas here in Duluth, I'm not seeing anything that looks terrible here. You got basically the same thing. You got Charter providing the same kind of speeds. Here you've got Lumen with 100 meg by 10. And I'm sure that Lumen is, you know, all over the country, they're trying to get fiber deployed. I don't know if this is an area that they're doing that right now. It would be an area they might want to target now with the city saying they're going to get in the business, or maybe it's an area they don't want to target with the city saying they're possibly going to get in the business. Maybe they just want to say, okay, we're just going to stand pat for now if the city's going to do this on their own. But as I was saying, this data is not great. So as we're looking at the census block, theoretically, there could only be, if at least one person in this area is getting this 940/35 service from Charter, then it considers everybody in this census block getting that service. And that's not good. However, with something like this, when you're clicking around from census block to census block and you're seeing the same thing, most likely everybody in this area has access to that speed. It's not like, you know, you're on the edge of a territory and you got 3 people over here that can get it and the rest can't. I mean, we're looking at an area where, you know, this is probably fairly accurate. What I think it's also missing, though, possibly is any updates. I don't know how, I think the last time the 477 data came out was I think the last time it was submitted was maybe July of last year, as far as getting processed, which means, you know, this certainly could have changed. Again, Lumen could have done some fiber deployments in here. So there could be, you know, it's possible that you've got somebody like T-Mobile or Verizon in this area that's doing fixed wireless 5G service that they're starting to deploy very quickly throughout the country. So there could be many more options that are not showing up on this map. The next maps we're going to see from the FCC are going to come out late this year, as far as being able to look at a map probably and see what's on it and see what service providers are saying, because there's a period between June and September when every single fixed line service provider has to submit updated information to the FCC, and they have to submit it down to every serviceable location. So every serviceable location that they have under their service area, they've got to say, okay, here's the speed we can deliver or we are delivering to this address. And that's going to be the next version of the FCC maps. And before that becomes totally final, it's going to be a challenge process that's going to go back and forth between the service providers that enter that information and maybe some stakeholders in the communities. It could be the state or local communities that are going to come out and challenge some things. Could be consumers could challenge some things. Could be one service provider challenges another service provider's information. So maybe you've got Charter and they might challenge that Lumen actually has fiber in this area. I'm just giving a for instance. So that's going to be the next step as we determine who really has internet. So again, right now, to me, what it looks like is that what's going on here is that you've got cities that are, being approached by these consultants, or they're talking about it and they're saying, wow, there's a lot of money out there. I think this one, as well as the one in Jamestown, they're saying they're going to use ARPA funds for, the American Rescue Plan Act, that they're going to apply some of that money to this, which is surprising to me because I thought you could only use that in a very underserved or unserved area. But if they're able to do that, I think they're seeing that money and saying, hey, let's go ahead and build out this broadband infrastructure now. And they're either approaching these consultants or the consultants may be approaching everybody, mass mailing and saying, hey, you need to build a municipal network. We can help you. Let us do the feasibility study. You'll find out how much people want it. And then, we'll provide the cost for you. It should be, somebody like Entry Point's saying, hey, it should be an open access network. And the thing about an open access network, if you do it, is it resolve some of the questions or concerns people have about like a municipality getting in the business and competing with private ISPs, because what the municipality is saying is, we'll build the network and we're not going to run it. We'll let you guys, we'll run the infrastructure, but we're going to let you guys actually offer the service. So we'll build the pipes to every curb, and we'll even connect people up. A lot of times the municipality will go in and they'll connect up the customer. They may put the equipment out there, and then they will let the ISPs strictly do a retail play over that infrastructure. And Entry Point, the company that is talking to this city and the one that did the business plan for Jamestown, they've got a really kind of cool system. It's a very automated system where once that open access system is set up, somebody can go to a web portal for that city's internet, and they can say, let me see, which ISP do I want? And they can pick that, and it automatically gets provisioned for that ISP. They don't need to go out and do anything if it's already set up. And if they change providers, if they, a month later say, well, you know what, I'm not happy with the customer service I'm getting from this one. Oh, and this one offers TV as well, and that one doesn't. I'm going to switch to them. So they can click on the page and say, I want to switch to this one, and everything automatically gets provisioned. So that's a really cool system that Entry Point has. They set that up in a place called Ammon, Idaho. If you want to look that up, and that's kind of where they got their start with that. The other way that sometimes it gets set up is not quite so automated, where person switches from ISP to ISP, it sends a work order, and then you've got some technician that has to do some work either in the central office somewhere, switching things over, and then possibly even going to the customer home. It's a little bit less automated. All right, well, thanks for joining me. So I think we'll see more of this, more municipalities considering getting in the business. We've got a lot that's going to be coming up. It's May now. We're into the month of May. And since we're into the month of May, the next big news coming is the Notice of Funding Opportunities from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. You're going to see those coming out probably May 15th, May 16th. That's when those are going to hit. So certainly I'll be talking about that when that happens, but just be looking for that. And then again, following that in June is when the FCC is going to open up their broadband data collection fabric for collecting data, and the ISPs are going to have to start submitting that information, and they have through September 1st to do that. So lots going to be coming up here in the near future. Thanks for joining me. If this was helpful, you liked it, please give me a like on the video. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, click the bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.